Without a names binding us as they go, Neil deGrasse Tyson yells out, confirming the Voyager's most confusing and sad finding in the last 10 years. This is a surprise that scientists were not at all ready for, since the Voyager sent back this upsetting data from space. They haven't been able to rest, and everyone is walking around in a tense atmosphere. Scientists, engineers, and experts have been called away from their stations to deal with these things that Voyager just saw. We have very little information about where these strange items are coming from or where they are going. We can't say they aren't different from other things we've seen, though. What are these strange things that Pioneer 1 found not long ago? Today, we're going to break down these results in Neil deGrasse Tyson's Pioneer 1, which has been able to tell the difference between 500 dark objects in space for almost 50 years. Along the streets of space, Voyager 1 has been studying deep areas that telescopes on Earth have been unable to see. It has found shocking information that has left us speechless. Because of the many talented people who work at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, Adventure 1 has been the best navigator to the obscure district of intergalactic space. This feat of engineering has made us more aware of the wonderful things in our world. Neil deGrasse Tyson has said that Pioneer has found 500 dark objects floating slowly through space. This is another improvement. Normal experts were shocked by this news, which made them start to look over the data collected by Voyager 1 furiously. Not too far away, something strange was getting ready, and it was hard to solve this recurring puzzle that had even the smartest experts stumped. Since Neil deGrasse Tyson insisted on this discovery, there have been many original translations trying to paint a picture that makes sense of the secret. Except for acting, the kind of strange data that was recently sent from space came from another space gadget. In any case, experts could have checked to see if the information was correct, but we're here to talk about Pioneer 1, the space test that has been going strong for almost 50 years and has surpassed our expectations. Scientists thought Voyager 1 would stay in space for 3 years, but it has now been there for more than 45 years, finding out things that will change the course of history. All the while, the most fascinating thing about this great story is that Pioneer is making it up while surviving bad luck from very far away from Earth. When scientists last checked, the space test was 14.5 billion miles from Earth and moving quickly through space. There were no signs that it would slow down anytime soon. Every year, the space test has been going at a speed 10 times that of the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Although experts have found this pill a little hard to swallow, it's because normally, given how long the space test was in space, one would have thought that the speed would have slowed down significantly. It looks like Voyager 1 will definitely be the unique case in this story when looked at more closely, and its most recent statements show this once more. For experts, it was just like any other day when Voyager 1 hit them with exciting news that they would remember for a long time. Voyager 1 had just so happened to see some strange things going by in space. Cosmologists were confused when they looked into information that said about 500 dark objects had appeared out of nowhere. This reveal had no limits, which makes sense. There was a moment when we didn't know these things existed, and the next second, experts were tearing their brains out trying to figure out this puzzle that nature had dropped right in front of them. The experts were in a jam, and they could only find one person or thing to blame: Voyager 1. With a sudden realization, experts also knew that the space test was the key to breaking this secret even further. At first, when new information about this reveal came out, some experts thought it might have been an accident. They thought that the hour of Pioneer 1 could help them find it at first, which means that it could send us wrong information. Assuming we choose to look at it this broad way, it seems like a possible explanation since Adventure 1 was sent out as early as 1977, providing active help for over 50 years. It's likely that the PCs in the space device would have worn out and started to disconnect, failing to do their jobs and sending bad data back to the group on the ground. As interesting as this record sounds, experts say we shouldn't stop there because it would be disrespectful to the Voyager's peaceful spirit to not endure the harsh and unpredictable conditions of space. Adventure 1 has consistently given us useful information about our world, despite what skeptics think. The space test has been going for a long time because it has two sets of tools that work together. Pioneer 1 had two sets of command units, called Flight Data Systems, FDS, and Attitude Control Systems, ACS, just like its twin, Voyager 2. This has been the strong soul's secret power for exploring space and finding secrets. The clear, overt repetition made it possible for systems to change in predictable ways and for PC parts to be used even when they weren't working, which extended their life and organized Pioneer 1. Scientists and engineers on Earth came up with a plan to help the space test work better. This meant that the test tools would have to use logic that was designed ahead of time. When it got to this area, they didn't want to take any risk because they were tight on time and money for power. The electrical engineers came to the conclusion that the instruments would have to be made using rearranged frames that relied on hardware logic. So, Adventure PC systems had 3 double overt repetition matches and 6 locally available PCs that worked together as a circulated system. After getting past this obstacle, the experts had to get past the next tall block wall in a way that worked with the system. Coming up with a consistent plan for managing power beat this tough test. And this is where things get a little interesting. Power control was needed to keep Explorer's PCs running. At the very least, this is a huge job that can't be managed with the power resources that are available on board the space test. On that occasion, a scout was sent into the deep wilderness to look for wild animals with only a few tools. Scientists found a way to get around this problem by coming up with ways to limit and improve power use on board the Pioneer. For example, designers came up with ways to turn off systems that weren't needed. It was necessary for experts to make this tough choice, so they used a methodical approach to find and turn off parts or sections that were not necessary for the main mission goals of the space test. This is clear when we look at the heaters that go with certain instruments that need to be turned off. At first, it was thought that these heaters would keep the instruments at certain temperatures so that they would work perfectly. Anyway, the story needs to be changed because turning them off completely made the Explorer use less power. This drop in the space mechanical assembly's power use comes with an increase in the traveler's chance of survival. It's good for everyone to work together on this, but we should remember that shutting down unnecessary frameworks isn't an easy choice. It is a planned move that needs to be carefully looked at in light of the splits between keeping power on and meeting the reasonable goals of the space test. All hands must have been on hand at the time that such a choice was made. Engineers and analysts were supposed to work together to figure out what would happen to the quality and availability of logical knowledge if explicit frameworks were turned off. Feelings weren't affecting anything here. It was all about the facts that were available. They worked hard because they wanted to make the rocket more helpful while also making it use less power. This way, the rocket could keep gathering important information about our universe without stopping. Experts both thought that nothing should get in the way of Voyager's mission to find the deep secrets that have been hidden in the secret areas of space for a very long time. Regardless, lowering the power directly isn't the only way that NASA engineers keep the Pioneer ship level and making sure it works well in space. Another clear advantage they were planning to use to help the shuttle and scientists was something they had hidden. The engineers had to come up with ways to manage power that could adapt to the van's constantly changing temperature. For example, as Traveler 1 moves farther away from the sun, the amount of sun energy that can be used drops. We agree that this is a problem, but the makers were ready for it because they made sure that the rocket changed how it used power in the right way. NASA engineers and scientists did a great job with this flexible method because it makes sure that the available power resources are used efficiently to help with the test's basic tasks and sending data back to Earth. As you might expect, the good news doesn't end there. There have been significant technological advances and changes in power management that have allowed experts to improve and expand the power system of the spacecraft over time. A close examination of these improvements would reveal that they include better power flow, better battery charging methods, and improvements in power regulation and control. Putting in place well-thought-out and organized power control systems has given engineers a thrilling new way to work. It's made it possible for experts will work together to extend the Pilgrim 1 rocket's useful life while its twin, Explorer 2, is nearby. This is a big win for the academic community in the area and for the whole world. Explorer 1 has all the basic power it needs to explore the deepest parts of the universe thanks to its careful design and the management of force assets. The information shook the halls of logical request with its overwhelming force. Neil deGrasse Tyson's critical statement was heard all over the world, adding to the 10 years of careful study by Voyager 1 in the huge area of space between the stars. By chance, the rocket had found something very strange. 500 confusing parts sneaking through the void without being seen. Their origin and purpose are completely unknown. This unexpected event set off a chaotic flurry of activity among well-organized professionals. Anxious nights became the norm, and there was a lot of stress as investigators, engineers, and examiners worked together to figure out the effects of pioneer exposure, resisting a world where the rules of material science seemed to fall apart. Everyone was shocked when Traveler 1, a symbol of human imagination and confidence, sailed past the end of its long life in hopes of becoming a guide for research into the depths of space. Its tools were carefully designed to handle the problems that come with space travel. Now they sent data that challenged what people normally think. As the rocket went on its one-way trip through strange realms, it carried the hopes and fears of people on Earth with it. Each bit of information sent or received revealed a new aspect of the universe's complexity, putting ideas to the test and encouraging people to think again about their place in it. In the wake of Pilgrim 1's upsetting reveal, scholarly circles were filled with speculation and conversation. Was this a chance meeting with alien intelligence? Or was it just a quick look at some already unnoticeable features of affected extent? Scientists were on a mission to find answers to the unanswered questions, so they tore apart information streams and looked through telemetry records for any signs that could be dangerous. Even though there was a lot of risk, there was one thing that could not be questioned. Traveler 1 had changed the way we could ever understand the universe, pushing the limits of research and inspiring people for generations to continue the search for information beyond the stars. The sincere voice of Neil deGrasse Tyson reverberated through the scholarly world like bad news. Unintentionally, Adventurer 1 found a puzzle in deep space. 500 dark substances drifting through the quantifiable void, trying every known setup pattern. They see researchers and specialists doing the same thing, which draws them right into it. Pilgrim 1, our brave traveler who spent almost 50 years in space, was marked by these strange things that had never been seen or felt before. As it went on its trip, it pushed the limits and changed the standards of interstellar research. As experts tried to figure out what it all meant, it became clear that Traveler 1's work as a guardian of the universe was far from over. Its revelations continued to amaze and puzzle people.